Now, I'm going to I don't want to skip. I have one question before the one that I'm going to ask, but I think I want to skip to this one because it's always a bit nerve wracking to be interviewed on Zoom, which is what's happening a lot now. And now interviews are being done virtually. Are there any suggestions to help someone be confident and succeed in this format? Because so many people now are being interviewed for jobs
Mhm.
online, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that, while there were some businesses that were doing job interviews virtually ahead of time. My son was looking for his first job a little over a year ago, but he was in the tech industry. So it was interesting that all of those, every single one of his first interviews until the very, very end, were all done virtually. And so I think that in many fields where nobody ever even thought about doing virtual job interviews, it's of necessity now. So I think that being prepared is so important. Already having thought through stories or examples that you might want to share, the things that you would normally want to be thinking of if you were in an in-person job interview as well. I mean,
Mhm.
you want to have those things in your back pocket, that if they ask me this, okay, here's the story that I want to tell, or the example that I want to have. And depending on if it's a job interview or versus an interview like this, like a podcast, is being having a little bit of an idea of what we're going to be talking about, I think, is really important, just so that you can be as prepared as possible. But it's also
Right.
just remembering all of the little things of, how do I make eye contact, and how do I make that connection, because I'm trying to build a relationship now virtually, which it's just a little harder to read social cues and body language virtually than it is in person, but it still can be done, and it can be done very effectively. And I think a lot of job interviews and things like that are going to continue being virtual to some degree, even when it's okay not to be as well, but just because it's so convenient and it's so efficient. And so
Hmm.
I think that it's going to be a skill that is going to be important just going forward, because people out of necessity had to learn how to do these things that, in March,
Right.
I'd been using Zoom for a long time, but a lot of people had never even heard of it before, and
Right.
now it's a household word, it's a household name, and it's a verb, so we're zooming, it's a verb. So I think everybody knows about it, and so I think there are going to be components of it that are going to continue. But I think being prepared and trying to be yourself as much as possible, just like you would do if you were in person.
Yeah. And what is the secret to appearing confident and speaking clearly and concisely and look and sound like you've been doing it for, a long time?
Mhm. Well, I think part of it is just remembering that if you are good communicating with people in person,
Mm.
it's really the same thing. There's just now this camera that is sort of in between you, if you will, where even if so it's owning the fact that you are the expert, whether it's just about yourself or your subject matter, you are the expert. And so the more you can own that expertise, be confident in what you know, and certainly getting coaching and practice, and learning the tips and tricks that you need to help set you up for success. And what are the things that you can do to set yourself up for success? Am I better standing? Am I better sitting? Those kinds of things are going to set you up to be the best you can. But the biggest thing at the end of the day, and my husband says this all the time, especially with when we're working with introverts, is that it really is the same thing, because you're
Yeah.
still just talking to another person. Although it is a little weird, it feels weird
Yeah,
because
it is.
you could not reach out and touch them if you needed to. It's through the camera, but it really is very much like you are in person. And also knowing what you can control, I think, also can build your confidence, that if you are in a situation where you look and sound good, they can hear me, and I don't have a window, I don't have a window behind me so they can see my eyes and we can make that connection. That in and of itself, I believe, builds confidence, because we just know, okay, that's all dialed in and figured out. And now I'm not worried about my circumstances, if you will. All I have to focus on now is, what am I going to say? What are we talking about? And let me be really present in the conversation.
Right. Yeah, and that's very important. Now, it's speaking speaking on video link forum, it's not the most natural of circumstances, and it can be very uncomfortable for most of us. So I mean, I had a friend who she would just have her laptop, and all you could see was her eyes on the top of her head. She didn't want you to see anymore, and then a vast amount of ceiling and behind her.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it can be very nerve-wracking. So, are there suggestions that you can to sort of overcome the nervousness about participating?
Well, I think part of it is just knowing that we don't look and sound like we think we do.
Right.
It's literally just a fact. And I think that's a lot of people get in their own head about, well, I don't like my voice, or I don't like the way I look, or those kinds of things. And so if it's helpful to know, especially with our voices, we literally do not sound like we think we do. When I listen back to the
Mm,
recording of this podcast, I will sound different than I do in my head as I'm talking right this minute. And
right.
it's physiological. When we listen with, if I listen to the recording, I'm listening 100% with my ears.
Mm,
Excuse me, where if I'm listening 100% with my ears, where if I'm talking right this minute, there's a reverberation in my skull and in my chest that makes me sound different. And same thing when we look in the mirror, we're used to looking in the mirror, but when we see ourselves on camera, it's flipped. And so there is a little bit of a disconnect, especially if you part your hair on one side and now it's on the other, and it can be disconcerting. And frankly, like in my view, in my head, I have fewer wrinkles. I mean, I just do. My
right.
hair looked a little bit better that day, I thought, than it does when I first see the recording. But I think the biggest thing to remember is that if you have clients, if you have family members, if you have friends, that is exactly how they see and hear you.
Right.
And so if you have, if you're being successful in those parts of your life, then however it is that you're coming across, the way you sound and the way you look, it's working for you. And so sometimes I think we just get so in our own heads about, oh gosh, this hair is out of place and blah, 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 that we forget that we are successful just the way we are. And so that same is going to be true when we're on camera as well, whether it's same, whether we're in person or whether we're on camera. If we are being our true authentic self, then it it will come across the way that we intend. And certainly I think the practice is so important, and the coaching, because it is very difficult to just make that transition for a lot of people, of where, yes, I know it should feel like it is when I am in person, but yet I turn the camera on and all of a sudden every thought goes out of my brain and I can't remember my name.
Right.
So
Yes.
knowing that that's really normal, and yet what can we do to make it so that that doesn't happen as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. That is wow. What a great interview, Kim. Thank you so much for being here. We are very honored to have you here today.
Oh.
We are a lot of online studios,
Mhm.
teachers who have never, yoga teachers who never taught online. We've have people who've never interviewed online. We've
Right.
everybody. Yeah, we are all in this boat together, and if you would like more information about Kim Barnes and her husband, Mike Barnes, you can visit barnesteammedia.com. So that is BARNESTEAMMEDIA.com. And you can go on the site, you can book an appointment. You have lots of things on your site to help people. You have some free videos, don't you?
We absolutely do. There's free videos there that people can get, just a few tips and tricks to help them, and other ways that we can help support them as well. So thank you so much. It was so fun to be with you today. And I imagine there's probably not a yoga teacher out there that thought, if I become a yoga teacher, perfect, I'll get to be on camera all the time. So,
Well,
but yeah, and yet here we are, right? So
here we are.
yeah.
We are, yeah, and and I suspect that you are going to be very busy in the near future, because I don't think that we are going to go away from this.
Hmm.
So I think it's
Agreed.
going to be a way of life. So thanks
Agreed.
again, Kim, so much for being on this show,
My
and
pleasure.
And if you would like, again, please contact Kim at barnesteammedia.com. Fantastic site. She's a fantastic lady. And please don't forget to visit yinyogalifestyle.com and subscribe to our yinyogalifestyle.com newsletter. You can find free yin yoga videos on our site, and you can join live online yin yoga classes and receive your first class for free. And if you would like to give a gift certificate of wellness this holiday season, or for birthdays, or anytime you want to send a gift, please consider a Yin Yoga Lifestyle gift certificate. Please visit our website, yinyogalifestyle.com, for more information. Thank you for joining Yin Yoga Lifestyle, adding enlightenment, calm, balance, and creativity to your everyday life. I am your host, Colette Darville. Join us next time to continue our journey of balancing into a state of perfect harmony. Until then, this is Colette Darville, reminding you to inhale, sow, and exhale, hum.